YouTube, it's Summer. So today I wanted to share a story time of me not getting into medical school. Where to begin? This is kind of a long story, so get some snacks, get some whatever, settle down, we're gonna be here for a while. I began college in 2012, and I was a pre-med. I was a biology major in undergrad. I went to a state school. I had pretty decent grades, I'm not gonna lie. I was a member of the honors college, and I've always loved biology, so for me it wasn't super hard to sit down and study for long amounts of time on biology because I loved it. Subjects like physics, organic chemistry, which I was not a fan of, but I made it through okay. Junior year of college, I started to apply. Now, nobody in my family is a doctor. I don't have any friends who know anything about this kind of thing. So I kind of went in blind applying. And I probably submitted it all by July, late July. And which for some of you out there know is kind of a no-no. You're supposed to get your application in as soon as possible. And it usually, for Texas, it opens up in the beginning of May. So you need to get that in fast. I waited till like the end of July because I thought, well, you have until September. I'm pretty good, I did have a mishap. One of my people who was writing one of my letters of recommendation, he was my professor, stopped replying to my emails. And, the deadline for the letter came and went. And then I'd say, okay, not a big deal. If you could get that to me in the next week, that'd be great. That came and went. I kept calling him, I kept emailing him to no reply. So after I kept trying to contact this professor, I finally find out in September that he moved to Hong Kong. So I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I reached out to this professor at my university who's known for being like scary as hell and really strict and just intense. He's an intense man. Like, sir, I'm so sorry. I need to find a letter in 2 weeks. I have to get this done now. And I told him my situation, and luckily enough for me, he wrote me a letter. So about September, my primary application was completed. Surprisingly enough, I got a secondary application invite. Well, actually, a lot of schools do like a secondary application invite automatically so they get your money. But I got an interview request for the school that I'm going to attend next year. And so I was so excited. I had read everywhere on like Student Doctor and all those places that once you get an interview, 90% of your job is done. You just can't mess it up, basically. So I was like, okay, I'm normal socially. I'm like not a social awkward person most of the time, unless I'm YouTubing apparently. But I was like, no, this should be fine, I even went to like career center at my school and did a mock interview, just practicing, and I was ready. I was set. So I go to my interview. It went super well. I mean, it went incredibly. And I went home and I was like, okay, this is it. I'm good. Then nothing. I wasn't hearing any news. In February, when they start talking about match results, I wasn't matched. I had no pre-matches offered to me, but I still knew that after that they did rolling admissions, so there was still a chance. But then March came along and I finally got the notice that I was not accepted. Now, for someone like me who has known I want to be a doctor since I was 2, this was the most crushing news I ever could have received. I mean, this has probably been the biggest, I don't want to say failure because I learned from it and it wasn't a failure, but it was probably the biggest setback I've ever experienced in my life. I was devastated. I was destroyed. I came home, I tore down all of my medical posters off my wall. I just became really upset and depressed over the next couple of months because all of my other friends who applied at the same time as me were getting notices that they were accepted, and they were all celebrating, and on Facebook everyone's putting out, you know, oh, I got accepted, and I was surrounded by that. So it was rough. It was a really bad time in my life. I felt like a failure. I felt like, you know, why was I thinking I was good enough for medical school? Clearly I'm not. I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I don't have what it takes. They knew that. That's why they didn't want me. And then I was thinking, okay, so maybe my interview was bad. Maybe I'm weird socially. Maybe, you know, all of these thoughts were flying through my head. I had to come up with a plan fast for what I wanted to do. First of all, if I wanted to reapply. And second of all, what I wanted to do in the meantime. Now, I would have a year. Okay, so the way that med school applications work, for those who don't know, you apply in the summertime, and you apply over a year in advance. So the following August after you apply, that's not when you're going to be in school if you're accepted. It's a whole year from then. Does that make sense? So like you apply in June, then that whole next year to the next June, you're still not in medical school yet until the next August after that. Does that make sense? I'm describing this horribly, but that's okay. I'll have a whole other video on how to apply and all the 4-on-1 on that. I had to figure out what to do in my year off because in my mind, I was, yes, crushed, but I also was not going to give up. There was no way. I couldn't be happy doing anything else in my life, and I knew that. And that's why I had to keep going. I applied again. I applied for a graduate program, the Masters of Public Health program. So I knew I was going to be busy with that. I always wanted to get a Master's in Public Health anyways, so to me it was kind of exciting. I had something interesting to do in the meantime, and I didn't see it as, you know, a backup plan. My plan originally was to get that after my MD, and looking back now, I am so glad that I got it before. And public health is just incredible in that if you're going to be a doctor and you learn public health first, you learn about the health of populations, and then in medical school you can go down to the health of the individual. And doing it in that order really structures how you learn and how you approach health-related problems in society. It's just an incredible experience. And if you guys want, I can do a video on public health master's degree and what it's like and all of that. I just graduated with that this last December, so still pretty fresh in my mind. Anyway, so I dove into that, and I just decided, you know what, I'm not giving up on medical school, but I'm not going to not fully embrace this opportunity that I've been given. I fell in love with public health. My favorite class was biostatistics, and I actually started research with a biostatistics professor. I was able to go to a couple conferences. I was able to do a lot of publications. I would not have been able to do that had I just been using this degree to get into medical school. So I want to make that very clear. If you don't get in and then you try for a graduate degree, really embrace it. Really try to learn and fully dive into that degree, because it's not going to be worth it if you don't do that. You know what I'm saying? I decided to apply again. So the public health program is 2 academic years. I did it in 1.5. So I still had 3 semesters before my first year. I applied, knowing that if I got into medical school the next year, I would still have public health classes at the same time as medical school. Now that's really frowned upon. And I asked questions about this before I applied, just because at my school, the medical school and the public health school are in the same building. So lucky for me, I was able to get a lot of exposure that way and learn about it. And I found that it's really frowned upon to be taking other classes while you're in medical school. Medical schools want you to give everything you have to their program because that will ensure success. If you're distracted with a job or with another degree, it's going to be really hard to be successful. And medical schools are investing in their students. So as their student, you need to prove to them that you are worth investing in. I need more coffee. I applied again. I got everything in by like mid-July. It was great. Didn't get in again. So by this point, I think that I kind of expected not to get in. I knew it would be a miracle if I did. So I wasn't as crushed as the first time I got rejected, but it still hurt. The second time is really what taught me that medical school is really about sacrifice, commitment, and dedication. You can't apply to become a doctor just because you want to make good money. You have to really want it. And the second time I applied, I got an interview as well. So I was getting an interview at the same school. I had 2 interviews and 2 rejections. But what that did show me is that my interviews weren't necessarily the thing keeping me from being accepted. The second time around, I didn't let it get to me as much. I still kind of felt like a failure, and I still felt like I didn't know if I was good enough. But I kept going. I kept doing research. I kept building on my resume. By this point, I knew I would only have 1 semester left of public health. So I applied knowing I'd have nothing conflicting with medical school if I got in. And I also applied having built a good reputation for myself in the public health school. Now, like I said earlier, it was in the same building as the medical school, so that kind of gave me a little bit of an advantage because I knew some of the faculty, I knew a lot of the medical students. For the first time, my personal statement was really, truly personal. I decided that this time, my 3rd time applying to medical school, I would take off all the pressure. I wouldn't do a mock interview. I wouldn't hammer over my personal statement over and over and over. I wouldn't, wear only black to the interview and avoid words that normally I say but aren't very formal, like yeah and awesome. Not saying that you need to just go in, hey, how you doing? But you need to go in professional, but you need to be yourself. And I think that was a big key into why I wasn't standing out as an applicant, was because I was a cookie cutter. I was monotone. I was like every other pre-med student out there. So this time, in my personal statement, I took about a month writing it, and it was like word vomit. I just typed whatever I was thinking and put it all into one paper. Now, I had a couple medical students who I knew read over it and make edits and help me, make it a little bit stronger. And then in the interview, I was just much more casual. I wasn't tacky casual. I was still professional, but I tried to be relatable and myself and crack jokes if I wanted to and just really get to know the interviewer. And the interview went wonderfully. I was myself, really just talked with them like it was just a normal conversation on a normal day. And luckily, my school is very informal about their interviews, so it kind of went with the general flow of the interview day anyways. Now, you can always tailor your interview specifically to a school. About 2 weeks later, I got an email November 1st that I was accepted. And it made all of it, all of the heartbreak, all of the horribleness of getting rejected, all of the feelings of failure just fade away. And it was all so worth it. My dream was coming true. I knew that it was worth fighting for. This wasn't something that was unattainable. I could do it. Yeah, I'm not the smartest person out there, and I didn't have the best grades or the best MCAT. In fact, grades in MCAT, I'm pretty average. But just by being myself and really showing that I applied 3 times, I was really committed to getting in. I think that the admissions board saw that and also saw how much I loved my MPH and how much I really worked on that and dove into it, and I think that was the key. It is mid-April now, and I have my spring training coming up for medical school where I get to tour the anatomy lab and have a bunch of socials to meet all of the medical students that I'm going to be in class with, and I'm just so glad that I stuck with it. There were so many students that applied at the same time as me. Those who didn't get in, about half immediately just switched career paths. Then the other half kind of stuck with it, and as they either couldn't get in or couldn't raise their MCAT scores, people started dropping like flies, and it was very few who really stuck with it. Just because you didn't get in, that says nothing about you or your ability to become a doctor. Just keep that in mind, and if you truly feel in your heart that this is what you want to do, keep pursuing that and it'll come. So I hope you enjoyed my story time. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, comment down below, and tell me what other kinds of videos you want. All of my 3 people out there watching this, hey mom. So yeah, comment down below with any questions. Feel free to email me, that's in my channel information. And I'd love to help out if you have any questions or need some advice. I'd love to talk to some of you guys. So thanks for watching. Bye.